Today, we are diving into one of the most powerful ideas of the last few decades, Nassim Nicholas Taleb's Black Swan. Trust me, once you get this concept, you'll never look at the world or your plans the same way again.
I mean, really think about it for a second. You make a plan, you run the numbers, you think you've got all your bases covered, and then boom, something from totally out of left field comes along and just blows everything up. Why is it that the world always seems to have a surprise waiting for us, no matter how prepared we think we are? You know, we're kind of taught to see history as this smooth, gradual line of progress. But that's not how it works at all. The reality is that history doesn't just crawl forward. It leaps. It jumps from one massive, game-changing event to the next. And it's those jumps that really define everything. So what do you call these huge, unpredictable jumps that change the course of history? Well, Taleb gave them a name, and it's a brilliant one, inspired by a real-life discovery that completely upended what people thought they knew. A black swan is an event that hits us out of nowhere, has an absolutely massive impact, and then, and this is the tricky part, after it happens, we all start telling ourselves stories to make it seem like we should have seen it coming all along. Let's just break that down into its three key ingredients. First, it has to be a total surprise, a complete outlier. Nothing in the past pointed to it. Second, the impact has to be enormous, either in a good way or a really bad way. And third, our brains just hate randomness, so after the fact, we immediately invent a nice, clean story that makes it all seem perfectly logical and predictable.
And history is full of them, right? Before it existed, could anyone have really predicted the modern internet? Was the specific, horrific nature of 9/11 something anybody saw coming? No way. These weren't small changes. They were gigantic, world-shattering leaps. They were black swans. Okay, so if these events are so huge, why are we always so blindsided by them? Well, Taleb explains this with a simple, brilliant, and honestly, a kind of grim little story he calls the turkey problem.
All right, just for a minute, I want you to put yourself in the mind of a turkey. Your whole universe is this farm, and your life pretty much revolves around one key person, the farmer.
Every single day, without fail, this friendly human shows up and gives you food. For 1,000 days in a row, the evidence just keeps piling up. This human is your best friend, your provider. Your internal spreadsheet, based on 1,000 data points, tells you with almost 100% certainty that tomorrow is going to be another great day with more food. I mean, from the turkey's perspective, the answer is obvious, isn't it? Day 1001 is going to be just like all the others. The past is a perfect predictor of the future. The data is clear. What else could possibly happen?
And then comes the day before Thanksgiving. The turkey's perfectly crafted model, based on all that data, suddenly experiences a catastrophic failure. The single most important event in the turkey's life was completely invisible in its past experience.
And that's the whole lesson right there. In so many ways, we are all that turkey. We look at the past, at the data we have, and we project it into the future, totally blind to the fact that the biggest events are often the ones with no precedent. As Taleb puts it, our biggest mistake is just assuming that what we've seen before is all there is. And that is exactly why we can't see black swans coming.
So you might be asking, why is this turkey problem so much more dangerous for us today than it was for our ancestors? Well, it's because the world we live in now is a fundamentally different kind of place. We've wandered into a totally new territory.
To get this, Taleb gives us two worlds. First, there's the world of the average, which he calls Mediocristan. Think about something like human height. If you gather 1,000 people, their average height is pretty stable. Even if you add the tallest person on Earth, the average doesn't change all that much. But then there's Extremistan. This is the world of the extreme. Think about wealth. You take those same 1,000 people and you add just one billionaire to the room. Suddenly, the average wealth skyrockets into a totally meaningless number. That one single outlier changes everything. And here is the real kicker. Our brains evolved to navigate the predictable world of Mediocristan. But things like globalization, technology, and modern finance have thrown us deep into the wilds of Extremistan, a place where those single, unpredictable black swans can dominate everything. Our instincts are just totally mismatched with the world we've built.
So, if we can't predict these events, are we just supposed to throw our hands up and give up? Absolutely not. The answer isn't to get better at forecasting. The answer is to adopt a completely different mindset. It's about building fortitude. The very first step is just a dose of humility. We have to admit to ourselves how terrible we are at predicting the future. We get so arrogant about the things we think we know, but we're completely clueless about the vast ocean of things we don't know. And realizing that, really internalizing our own ignorance, is the true beginning of wisdom here. Okay, so here's the big strategic shift. Are you ready? Stop trying to predict the specific black swan. It's a fool's errand. Instead, your goal should be to build systems in your life, in your finances, in your work that are robust. Systems that can survive a huge negative shock, but are also set up to catch a massive updraft from a positive one. We're shifting from prediction to preparation.
Now, a fantastic practical way to think about this is what Taleb calls the barbell strategy. Imagine you put 90% of your money, or your effort, into something incredibly safe and protected, things that can't get wiped out by a negative black swan. Then you take that last 10% and you make a bunch of small, high-risk, high-reward bets.
And the logic here is just beautiful. Look, you've limited your maximum loss to just 10%. You are protected from catastrophic failure. But that little 10% slice gives you a lottery ticket for a massive positive black swan. One of those speculative bets could be the next Google, right? Your downside is tiny and known, but your potential upside is huge and unlimited.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. In your own life, your career, your investments, what's your Thanksgiving? What's the thing you're assuming will never ever happen? Remember the turkey. It was absolutely certain it was safe. The real goal isn't to guess when the axe will fall, but to build a life that's strong enough to survive it when it does.